Hi, I'm Eleni Jokas, and this is Connecting Africa, the show in which we pick the brains of the very best from the world of business to see what excites them. This month, we are going to be focusing on the role technology can play in boosting trade opportunities. We'll have stories from around the continent and start with one from the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. The East African country has a vibrant tech startup scene. It's also home to some more established brands. I was there recently to visit the fascinating Pan-African tech studio, Adanian Labs. This is what I found out. I'm in Nairobi, and markets like this across Africa are the lifeblood of the continent. In fact, informal traders are what make things tick and work. And the question has always remained how to formalize the informal. And technology might just be the solution to propel this industry into a new economic reality. Known by some as the Silicon Savannah, Nairobi is becoming an increasingly important player in the international tech scene. Adanian Labs is just one example of local tech success here. Founded in Kenya and active across several African countries, Adanian is on a mission to cultivate startups in the technology field. Tell me about Adanian, what you guys do and your footprint across Africa.
So we're in the business of building camels.
Camels?
Yes. Yeah, so the camel thing is, so we say Adanian is a state of mind, right? We're here to build resilient young people and resilient technology that will go for so long, even though they might be so little. So when you look at a camel, it survives in the desert with so little for so long, and it doesn't complain. It just keeps going. So we're a technology company, a Pan-African technology company, and what really founded us was our mission to actuate the tech revolution on the continent by making sure that Africans are an active and proactive participants in the fourth industrial revolution. We invest in tech startups, and we come in on day one, so we're a pre-seed investor, but we have a very unique model in our venture building investment portfolio where we give access to finance, but we also give support and we capacitate the startups so that we de-risk the probability of them failing.
I think when many people look at the African continent, they're like, they look at the lack of resources or the fact that the continent still needs to industrialize, but we've seen pockets of excellence, specifically in the technology space, where we've seen entrepreneurs being able to solve big problems.
I mean, the good thing about Africa, Kenya and sub-Saharan Africa, it's a young continent, right? So there's a lot of vibrant young people, and they're all looking to create value for themselves, create wealth for themselves. And fortunately, Africa as a continent has so many things that are a challenge, but that's where the opportunity is. So technology allows us to leapfrog things in a way that we're not able to do before. If you look at the African history, we've missed the Industrial Revolution, we've missed a couple of things, but for the first time ever, we have a technology revolution where we are able to create impact and change the status quo of this continent. And the young people are the people who are going to do that.
But how are you envisaging, as a technologist, how that journey for the continent could be altered by the use of technology?
So, the face of Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, is the informal sector, right? Over 80% of people are in the informal sector. Over 80% of businesses are in the SME spectrum, right? So for me, I think the first thing is digitizing the informal sector, powering the SME sectors so that they're able to move from the informalness of their businesses so that they can get to become medium-sized and ultimately bigger companies. And they will be the ones to build the industries. If you look at regular retail, how we access goods and services in Kenya, we call them mamambogas. The small, in South Africa, they're called spaza shops. So the mom and pop stores, right? And they have been like that for over 20, 30 years. By empowering these small stores, where they now become, the next level of stores, we are slowly going to transform the different industries that are attached to all these different ecosystems.
Okay, so that's how you send money to you, yeah?
Yes. It asks me to send that much to her.
Okay.
I say yes, and voila, that's it.
That is awesome.
That's it.
That's amazing. So you've been around for 3 years and you've already made such big headway. Firstly, did you anticipate that you would grow so fast? And I guess, what is the future for you? What are you seeing coming up?
Yes, it's been an exciting 3 years, and I think we've managed to do all this because of also the place where we have decided to go to market from. I mean, we built the company from Kenya. If you look at what's happening in Africa, Kenya is becoming a hub of tech for the continent. So I think that was very, very key. And the future is absolutely exciting. We are building the largest tech company on this continent. And by largest, I mean in terms of the impact that we will create across sectors, but also the fact that, our aim is to digitize the 80%, the SME ecosystems and build a connected Africa, a borderless Africa. So I'm extremely excited.
But Kenya is not the only African country making a name for itself as a tech hub. Morocco has also become a major player, and we'll head there after the break. Hello again and welcome back to Connecting Africa. The North African country of Morocco is famous for its ancient cities and history, but in this modern era, it also prides itself on its connection with technology. It is a natural home for one of the continent's most important tech shows. Gitex Africa took place in Marrakesh at the end of May. It attracted more than 30,000 visitors who came to see around 900 exhibitors from 128 plus countries. We, of course, were there as well. Housed in a massive exhibition space in one of Morocco's most visited cities, Gitex Africa was, for many visitors, a highly entertaining experience. We met tech visionaries from across Africa, including people like Maha Jouini.
African Center for AI and Digital Technology, c'est un think tank pan-africain.
The African Center for Artificial Intelligence and New Technologies is a pan-African think tank initiated by African researchers who are based in Africa. The starting idea is that Africa has the right to decide its AI policies and to strengthen the digital transformation project with its own capacities. It is no longer a question of taking policies born outside of Africa and wanting to integrate them into our continent without taking into consideration the African reality. And to understand the African reality, you have to listen to the children of Africa. It is up to us to find the appropriate solution to the problems that concern us. Issues that relate to infrastructure, cybersecurity, and so on. We care about digital sovereignty and about the continent we want to leave behind.
Maha says it is time for Africa to start looking after itself when it comes to tech.
We talk about digital sovereignty as long as Africa is able to decide its future in this area. This means that Africa stops importing technologies from outside. As Africans, we need to create and build our own digital infrastructure. All decisions must come from Africa and Africans. We need to work on the disparities and on the inclusion of women, especially indigenous women.
Artificial intelligence was on the minds of many of the delegates. This Nigerian tech entrepreneur is the CEO of a company that claims to have developed Africa's first humanoid robot.
We know communication is very key in Africa in accessing technology. A lot of people are not quite learned in digital literacy, the ability to use this technology. So Omeife is a multi-purpose robot that will be tailored down to different use cases. We were developing for 2 years, and then we got the first version launched in last year. So it was really good experience because we can talk from a practitioner point of view because we saw what the failures were. We had resources problem because it's quite not easy to do R&D resources on such kind of high technology.
He's also looking into the practical and business opportunities that can come from VR and drone technology.
Our solutions are tailored to solve problems of Africans, not Africans forcing themselves to use these solutions.
The CEO of AfriLab supports the tech entrepreneurs finding those solutions.
It's very important because
to achieve, to generate and create wealth on the African continent, right? And improve lives across different sectors. We need to support innovators and entrepreneurs and startups that are building these solutions. So we have innovators across the continent developing fantastic solutions that solve these challenges, but they need help. The regulatory environment is quite tough, so we make sure that we drive investment into ecosystems around the continent, and we do this through the innovation hubs. So what the hubs do is that they act as a support infrastructure for startups to build their businesses.
In many ways, these are the people who represent a brave new business world in Africa. They are determined not to be left behind.
Alors pour moi, embracing.
For me, embracing artificial intelligence is a struggle to restore the image of Africa and Africans, and to affirm that yes, we are ready to actively participate in the fourth industrial revolution.
A fascinating glimpse into the future from visionaries in the tech space. Hi, I'm Eleni Jokos, and this is Connecting Africa. Technological innovation is key to development across Africa, and one organization in Botswana is exploring solutions to some of the biggest challenges the country faces. We travel to Gaborone to meet Professor Sheldon Masupe, the CEO of the Botswana Institute for Technology Research and Innovation, or BITRE.
We went throughout the country to try to find out what are the problems, what is challenging the locals of this country. And from there on, then we segmented ourselves into two broad areas that we'll focus on. The first area will be technologies, and the second one will be natural resources and materials. Now, under technologies, we have energy, we have electronics and communications, and the last one is information system technologies. And under natural resources and materials, we also have three subdivisions that we do research on. The first one is nanomaterials, the second one is building material science, and the last one is climate change.
Professor Masupe and his team's work plays on the nation's strengths.
Because you try as much as possible to develop solutions based on your areas of strength or what you have, we are endowed in terms of minerals. And when you look at the current trend, the e-mobility is taking the world by storm. And you introspect and you say, where is it that we can have impact?
As part of their work, the team at BITRE has developed an extraction process to deliver base metals used in battery manufacturing for electric vehicles.
This has been an international success because it is a collaborative effort with a Canadian partner called Process Otec. The investment of building that plant has been guaranteed by the Canadian government. So when it comes to success areas, that will be one of those.
But while there have been successes, one challenge remains.
I think right now my biggest challenge is to get these products commercialized. BITRE is like 10 years old. And when you speak research and development organizations, lifespan, it's an infant. It's fairly new, it's very young. We are at that point now where most of our products have reached that stage where we need commercialization. Ultimately, you end up with a product. And this product needs to exist and go to industry somehow, such that you can go and commercialize that product.
The team at BITRE has developed an instrument to measure their progress.
Whatever we do, there's an end user in mind. There's a need. But we have an instrument that we've developed in-house that we call Innovation Management Framework that guides us all the way from ideation all the way up to commercialization. And we continue to check if whatever we are doing is still speaking to some sort of business case. When researchers propose a project, they say, look, we found a need here and we would like to do something on it. We expect them to write a proper proposal with a business case to see that look, we think this thing can have an impact in the society by ABCD.
And many of their innovations, like these solar-powered streetlights, have the potential to be applied across the continent.
What can assist a Botswana here in Botswana? It can assist the Zambian and Namibian or whoever.
The tree has adapted to other sectors too during the COVID pandemic. They tested a membrane developed for masks in the mining industry for use in the health sector with impressive results.
It was working a lot better than the masks that were available at that time. We tested this filter on 4 production points, different times. We sent it to Nelson Labs in the US for them to test. And on those various 4 points, the mask came telling that you can protect 99.9% of known bugs. Now, this is a product that has been developed in Africa and in Botswana, and it has a rating that is higher than what is known internationally as the best product. When you talk about innovation and technology, it is actually happening in Botswana on an international scale.
When we come back, we meet another cutting-edge tech innovator in Kenya who's helping vulnerable communities prepare for the impacts of climate change. Welcome back. I'm Eleni Jokos and this is Connecting Africa. Kenya is one of the most technologically developed countries in Africa. Trailblazing tech from Nairobi is responsible for helping to alleviate the consequences of climate change in some of the continent's driest regions. Dr. Guyo Malicha-Roba is passionate about data. He uses it to mitigate the effects of droughts and food shortages across the Horn of Africa. I've come to Nairobi's Jamil Observatory to meet him. I want to talk about the Jamil Observatory Research Project, what its aim is and what you've already been able to achieve.
So I think there are a few things there. One, the first is that they, I think through research, they've realized actually the resilience of the pastoral population in the face of recurrent crisis is not strong enough to bounce back to support the communities in the normal structure of cycles of drought. Number two, I think government don't have enough resources, neither do they have the right data to act in time. And that timeliness question is still a very big question in that space. The resource question is another question that is up there. So data and resources are a constant issue in this. But then there's the other side of it, which I think is the responses is piecemeal, fragmented, and also I think not very much embedded in the long-term planning processes.
And it's reactive, isn't it?
It's very reactive, so it's not embedded in the long-term planning processes. So, and then private sector is not interested in going to the north and dry areas because I think the viability of what they want to do is not good enough for the business. So a host of all these issues I think made the project an interesting one to try. So the observatory is sort of like an actual research project which try what we call brokering knowledge, science, and connecting different dots to make sure that how do we do this thing early enough before the drought reach emergency.
You were a herder. What have you learned from that experience that you're applying to what you're doing right now? Because you come with incredible knowledge.
I grew up in pastoral areas. I was herding as a young boy. Yeah. The season was very good. We never had reason to be worried. We couldn't even sell our animals. But then I think for me, that live experience gives me the good days. But then I've also seen the bad days currently because I have livestock right now. I lost substantially. I lost like 6 to 8 cows in the last drought myself. So for me, I think the things I bring out is actually positioning of research to respond to the real issues.
But technology also forms part of this, right? So traditional early warning systems, which people have been relying on for generations, versus what we're seeing now on how technology can amplify the data and the warning systems as well. How important is technology in this?
Yeah, I think technology is very important, especially when you're looking at the forecasting, building scenarios around the weather and the weather pattern. I think that's why our colleagues in the University of Edinburgh, which is the lead of the project, are bringing a huge part of the Earth observation, artificial intelligence, the big data, and all these things, especially for Somalia, where collecting data and preparing is difficult. So there's a huge part of this in terms of, I think, looking at the risk profiling. Drought is not homogeneous, it's a heterogeneous thing within a particular landscape. Because we're struggling with counting animals in pastoral areas, and that solution will tell us This is the number of animals at the onset of drought, and this is the animals that we have. So when you want to do restocking, basically you can guide very purposefully that this is the area where the risk is more amplified.
And this is a cross-section that impacts, right, different communities in Ethiopia, in Kenya and Somalia, correct?
Yeah.
How are you working cross-border with those communities?
Currently we are present first, I think, in Kenya and Somalia, largely in Kenya because of where I'm based, and secondary in Somalia through the government agencies to understand what they need for us to respond. I think when you look at cross-border communities, just let me give you an example of Ethiopian border, where I come from. The community just cut across 200 kilometers, 300 kilometers are the same communities which are cut by geographical boundaries. So
but those boundaries don't really exist for the
They don't exist,
there.
yeah. It's not an ecological boundary, it's a political boundary. So what happens is that communities have stronger reciprocity and arrangement between them. So last season, I think quite a number of animals from Ethiopia survived their drought, around Mount Kenya, which is around 540 kilometers from the border. That's how far they came from Ethiopia. So for me, I think two things which I'm looking at, which could be of interest. One is how do we embed governance and strengthen governance for mobility? Because mobility is one of the essential things people do to escape drought episodes. But nobody's investing in mobility. Nobody's developing infrastructure that cut across these different areas. So in our characterization and profiling of drought, one of the things which possibly we are thinking of doing through collaboration with other partners in Ethiopia, in Somalia, is to look at these mobility corridors and see how do we actually shape, using data, using research, infrastructure that enable people to be mobile, to utilize.
And with that thought, it was time to go and visit some of the other attractions that make Kenya a must-visit destination. A few minutes ago, I was stuck in traffic. I visited tech entrepreneurs and saw incredible innovation. 10 minutes later, out of the center of Nairobi, I'm now in a national park. And it gives you a sense of how you can bridge the world of technology and sustainability. I had a truly fascinating time in Kenya, a country that is combining immense natural beauty with cutting-edge thinking. For this month, it's now time to say goodbye. As ever, we have some incredible stories on our website, which are certainly worth looking at. I'm back on the road next month. Until next time, make sure you stay connected.